Good morning, everybody. It's a while since I've been on the podium, so bear with me. I've just taken over as the interim CEO for TMK after a fairly active period for the company. I guess, timing and a bit of luck, two things that we haven't addressed in this conference yet, but I think very important to all, certainly small caps and micro caps. While everybody reads that, I'll just start with a bit of a story. My background was, I started in the industry in the Perth Basin with two of the first companies that were in the Perth Basin Discovery and Arc Energy. And again, timing and a bit of luck would have really changed the outcome for those companies with what's gone on in the Perth Basin. And I guess some of the big discoveries have been made, pretty material. And, I think we've made a pretty material discovery in Mongolia. My entree to Mongolia was really, I used to be managing director of Elixir, and again, timing and luck. We had a good look at Lockyer Deep when Empire Oil had it. Unfortunately, couldn't raise the funds at the time, and bizarrely enough, we also looked at what the Taroom Trough where Elixir currently is, and couldn't raise the funds at the time to do that either. So with a different gas market in the East Coast. So I guess we looked at Mongolia, and Neil had a private company that we backdoored into Elixir, and then off it went and did very well. We had some Alaskan assets that I took to another company that was subsequently taken over by 88 Energy. And I think all shareholders of Elixir and XCD did pretty well out of that. So I guess at that time, this opportunity came across my desk. A guy called Brendan Stats, who was our CEO till recently and is currently at site in Mongolia, getting ready for drilling, presented, and he'd been in Mongolia for 10 years as a coal geologist and pretty much knew every coal deposit in Mongolia, and had come across this one with, or this opportunity with some locals and didn't really know what to do with it, I guess, was the, so I got in contact. We raised money privately, about $1 million or so. We did a deal with Talon Energy, Dave Casey's probably around here somewhere, who really loved the project. They came in as a farm-in partner. Subsequent to that, we then backdoored the asset into Tamask Oil and Gas, which is now TMK. So we drilled 5 exploration wells in the early days, all found thick coals with all the right attributes for coal seam gas, as Brendan had predicted, and we quickly booked a contingent resource of 1.2 TCF. Now it's twice the size of Waitsia, and some of the other fields have been discovered in the Perth Basin, so it's pretty significant. Subsequent to that, we then did a Talon exercise their right to move forward with the project and do a pilot well project to prove we can get the gas out of the ground in commercial rates, and that was completed approximately a year ago, and the wells put on production. So since then, we've been doing a few things, and we'll come to a little graph in a minute, and we'll talk about that. But corporate structure, like everybody, we've been hit share price wise. We did the Talon, when Talon was taken over or merged with Strike, we bought back the interest, the 33% they had. We issued about 15% of our company shares to buy back 33%, about 1 billion shares or so, and subsequent to that, we saw a fair bit of demise in the share price, which I think was probably half expected, given the shareholder base of Talon at the time. Anyway, we've continued on from there, and the project's made good progress, and we're in a reasonably good shape to drill some additional wells, which we'll come to in a minute. So board's here, a couple of our board members in the audience. John Warburton, who's our chairman, is been on the board of, in the past, Cenex, so very familiar with coal seam gas. That was taken over by Hancock and POSCO. And then he's currently on the board also of Empire Energy, which is doing something in the similar Beetaloo project, not coal seam gas, but shale gas. So Mongolia, I don't need to go too much about this because I think Neil's already addressed this in numerous presentations in the past, but obviously, energy short, a huge opportunity, big mining industry like WA, and the coal seam gas industry is just emerging, but could be very significant for the country and obviously for early movers like TMK. Sort of our immediate activity and catalysts, we've been working away on these pilot wells, so we've come to the conclusion we do need to drill additional wells, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but we're now hoping to drill 3 additional wells within infill wells essentially to increase the density of the dewatering and depressurisation, and hopefully we'll get there sooner, but we're sort of targeting end of March next year to prove commercial flows. And commercial flows in this area is probably in the region of 100,000 scuffs a day. It's not a lot, but these wells are cheap, vertical wells, unstimulated, so you can do a lot of damage for your money. I'll just skip through to this one. So look, we never really showed this in the past, but this sort of shows where we've been for the last year. And sort of why some of the decision making has resulted in us deciding to drill 3 additional wells. So early on, we got gas pretty early. We were flaring gas, and we're the only coal seam gas developer in Mongolia that is actually has been consistently flaring gas for 12 months. So we got some pretty good results early, and it was all looking pretty positive. We did some testing to make sure that the wells were actually talking to each other, and we had good permeability between the wells, the 3 pilot wells. Then we had a bit of a period of a couple of blockages with pumps, which always happens. It was actually just one well, which was our deepest well. We had some blockages, had to pull the pump a couple of times. And then we started seeing some fairly nice little blips in the gas rate, and we thought, right, we're on our way, this is all good. But then, of course, that sort of petered back to more a stable flow. We did some other testing at that time to see, what some differing production methods. Again, we've been through this the last sort of 3 or 4 months of pretty stable flows. There's a big dip in the water rate there. Is when we had a bit of a surface issue with one of the surface facilities, which we fixed. And then, again, we've been just doing some other testing in recent weeks and to determine if there's better ways to get better flows or increased gas flows out of the wells. But you can see in general there's a decline in the water rate, and the gas rate's been fairly stable. And we're looking for that point where we reach the critical desorption, where gas rates take off and water rates still continue to come down. So we did a number of independent reviews and spoke to every expert in coal seam gas we could find in Queensland, and they've all come to the same conclusion that the best way forward is to drill more wells, and we'll get there quicker. So Brendan again and others have all said that the longer these things take to dewater, the more gas you get out of them in the long run. So it's not a bad thing, but ultimately the market can't wait as long as maybe ideally you would want to if capital and time wasn't an issue. So I'll just skip forward to here, which is basically where we are. We have 2 seams. It's only the upper coal seam that we've booked any contingent resource to. There is a lower coal seam, but the initial exploration wells, didn't show high permeability in that seam. So we're focused on the upper coal seam, which is as I said, 1.2 TCF is plenty of gas to get on with. And this is only in a very small area. We're surrounded by coal mines. There's plenty of data, and there's actually a market right there for the gas that we can initially produce from these pilot wells. All the coal miners use power imported from China, and occasionally that gets turned off. And when they turn that off, they've got to burn diesel, which obviously costs a fortune. So there's a market of 35 to 50 megawatts directly where we are, and we're literally 100 metres from a substation. So we've drilled the 3 pilot wells, LF1, 2 and 3, Lucky Fox 1, 2 and 3, all reasonably successfully, and now we're looking at infilling in that to try and increase the density, which on a... Oops, sorry. So this is only in the very small little area where you can see the red dots and the green dot. That's where we're focused at the moment with a pilot well, but ultimately we're looking at expanding across the whole upper coal seam there. It runs east-west, And that runs for a lot further, but our current contingent resource is only where we've drilled the exploration well, which was SL1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. SL2, Snow Leopard, SL Snow Leopard 2 was where we did the pilot well program. So really we're in this phase of getting to the point of critical desorption. We're about 60, when we did the shut-in test in January, February, we're about 65–70% the way there to getting to critical desorption. And the wells probably will get there, but as I said, it will take too long for the market really. And so we're just really accelerating the process by drilling 3 additional wells in the area. As I said, the market is pretty good locally with early commercialisation for the coal miners. There's other opportunities in Mongolia. They import gas from the only gas they get is from Russia. And that's pretty expensive, comes in bottles. So there's things like mini LNG, CNG, and I think there's an obligation on all producers in Mongolia to serve the local market before you can start talking about exporting it to China, which is ultimately the goal here for a very large resource. So we have a conceptual stage development plan. There is a lot of, I think, Alexa has spoken about this many times in the past. There's a lot of impetus from the government to do something about air quality in Mongolia. In Ulaanbaatar, it's particularly bad. I think it's the most polluted capital city in the world, and all their power is coal-fired. So that they really do need to do something about it, and gas being hopefully the transition fuel and the most obvious one in Mongolia. Solar and wind, there are talks of doing all this sort of energy in Mongolia, but it's difficult. I mean, it's hard to get the capital. Solar's not particularly good. Mongolia is very cold and long winters, so it really is the fuel of the future for Mongolia, in my opinion. Oh, sorry. Where we are, we're down right on the border of China. We're only about 30 kilometres from the border. As you drive from, this is just the region. Dalansgad is the local capital of the South Gobi province. Ulaanbaatar is about 500 kilometres north of that. And as you drive down there, you do drive across a fairly rugged desert to get to our area, but once you get there, it's a lot of infrastructure, huge coal mines. Brett Lawrence and myself went down to the border on our last visit in June, and there was a 20-kilometre row of trucks waiting to cross the border full of coal into China. So it's a massive import-export route for Mongolia, and there's a lot of infrastructure. There's talk of railway lines. There's already high-tension power lines going across the border, and obviously in the future that's where we'd be looking to do some form of export route if that came about. So that's the Chinese demand story. We don't need to go on about China's desperate for energy. The great thing about having a PSC in Mongolia is that the government, by virtue of the PSC, owns about 30, depending on your production rates, but at a high level would be 30 to 35% of the project. So there's no real incentive for the government to sell cheap to China. They'll want to get a market price, so we think we're in a good position there from a cross-border negotiation point of view. And it's said that there's a local market anyway, which we can sort of start a business. We've got a fairly strong Mongolian part of the register. Our biggest shareholders got 23%, is a Mongolian businessman. There's other Mongolian high net worth people in there. There is a lot of wealth in Mongolia. Not a lot of cash, but there's a lot of wealth. And people are invested in mining projects across the board. Relatively small population, but very progressive. And I'd have to say a Tuesday night or Wednesday night, Mongolia is a lot more active than it is in Perth. So I think we can, and a very young population too, and very, very keen for development. And with that, that's pretty much it. But the main catalyst for us in the very short term is drilling these additional wells, hopefully getting to a demonstration commercial production. And if we can do that, I think the game changes for not only TMK but Mongolian CBM industry, which is still in the emerging stages. Thank you very much.